Hey guys, my name is Ryan.
And I am Misko.
And welcome to Overwatch Central and welcome to King's Row in London, home to our first map guide. Now this guide isn't going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and no doubt we'll be changing up the format of these guides as we go along. This guide isn't necessarily going to be about using the flanks and the map's layout, although we would definitely recommend you jump into a custom game on Skirmish where you can get into these Overwatch maps and have a look around and find these flanks on your own. But this is more about breaking the map up into different sections and switching to more appropriate heroes when necessary. We are going to be breaking up King's Row into 3 areas, talking about the surroundings with a little bit more detail, and then talking about the heroes, what we think are great on this map in the certain areas for both attack and defense.
King's Row is a hybrid map between the control point game mode and the payload game mode. For best results, the defending team will be holding the area just behind the wall, an archway just in front of a big statue. It's the attacking team's job to push through and claim that area. There are a lot of indoor areas for both teams to use and a good flank on the side for the attackers. The initial timer gives the attackers 5 minutes to claim the payload. Once the payload has been collected and 3 minutes added to the timer, the attacking team have to push the payload through an alley with a couple of turns added in for some extra choke points. There are several back alleys that a Reaper or a Tracer can use to flank around the defending team, with some higher ledges that the defending team can use for snipers, junkrats or turrets. The end of the alleyway will reward you with a checkpoint and 2 extra minutes on the clock, as you push the payload into the Omnic City below London. The area gets very narrow as the payload gets close to the end of the map. There's a good vantage point for the defending team to place a sniper, and the attackers have short flanks on both sides.
Now we are going to quickly discuss attacking on King's Row and starting off with the first area, taking that objective point and what heroes we think work well for capturing the area. First up, we'll talk about supports. Lucio is our first pick. Even though he's recently been nerfed, he's still very strong for pushing objectives and healing the team around him. There'll be a lot of damage flying around at you, so it's good ult charge, so long as you make sure to amp it up at the right times. Zenyatta can also be very useful with his Harmony Orb on a flanker and discarding certain enemies so you can pick them off pretty easily. If you don't want to go with a classic 2-2-2 setup, then you can switch it up by picking a 3rd offense hero instead of a 2nd support, but we'll get onto that a little bit later. For tanks, having a hero that can take the fight to the objective instead of on the choke is great to have. Reinhardt is very strong for pushing through it, and Roadhog can also soak up a lot of damage and deal with any heroes harassing your team. D.Va can be nice if you manage to charge up an ult quick enough, but for this one we're going to stick with Reinhardt and Roadhog. A flanker is definitely needed for this part of the map, so either Tracer or Reaper will fill up one slot. The second offensive hero should be a McCree or a Soldier. McCree is great at melting through tough heroes, and considering the distance the enemy team have to travel when they die, it's always useful to have that kind of hero. Soldier is a much safer pick with his heal, but so long as you have another character that can roll with your Reinhardt, your Lucio and your Zenyatta, whilst the flanker sneaks around and gets as many kills as possible, you should be rolling pretty strongly. As far as defensive heroes go, there aren't any that are very good all round attacking. But if you have a player who's a mean and offensive Widowmaker, then don't hesitate to pull it out if it's not going well, as it puts a lot of pressure onto the enemy team. And if they don't have a Symmetra, it's a long run back.
So you've captured the objective but are running into problems on the way to the Omnic City. Here are some recommended changes. If your problem is with your supports, you probably want to swap out your Zenyatta, since it's an easy pickup for the enemy team. You want more mobility here and squishy heroes will struggle. We're gonna go with a Mercy for the strong heals. This part of the map is a lot tighter than the last one, meaning that heroes will take a lot of damage. It might be good to swap out the Roadhog to either Winston or Zarya. If the team is full of quick but low health heroes like Lucio, Genji and Tracer, then Winston is a great pick. He's also exceptional at reclaiming the payload. For damage output though, would go for Zarya. Changing one of the flankers to a more vertically agile character might be good if you need to draw away some attention and damage from the rest of your team on the payload. In reality, this should be a Winston's job, but having a Pharah to make sure that defensive heroes like snipers can't get comfortable on some of the more open ledges is a good idea. Most of the time, we find ourselves swapping McCree for a Soldier 76 in this section, for the increased accuracy and heal.
Finally, what to change when you get to the Omnic City if stuff is starting to slow down. It's a very difficult map to push. The defensive team have the advantage here. As far as supports go, we would suggest sticking with the ones that you'd have at the moment. When your aggressive heroes are flying in and out, taking loads of damage, it allows healers like Lucio, Zenyatta and Mercies to charge their ult a lot faster. Although Zenyatta has just as much health as Lucio, he hasn't got a self-heal and doesn't really have the movement ability to get around. There's going to be loads of ults flying around, so having a slow Zenyatta might be a problem. So we'd say Lucio is a stronger pick. Mercy has a lot more health than both of them, she can heal specific people and damage boost them, and her res is great for counter pushing. So we would say Lucio Mercy as support is probably the strongest in this situation. Tank wise, if you're running into problems, D.Va is always a great shout for this area, with her ability to point clear and bully snipers who are hiding up high. Keep your Reinhardt with a shield and push, and it's also great for ulting considering how narrow the last choke is. There's also a possible Winston swap you could do here, something you could also consider if Reinhardt isn't necessarily working out. Just being able to jump on the point, put the shield down and maybe ult to knock a couple of people around and confuse him might be a lot more useful than taking the slow approach with a Reinhardt. The offensive heroes we used for the ally section are both useful here, just make sure that you're careful as a Pharah since you are fairly exposed in this part of the map. D.Va and Mercy should be able to help you out, but considering swapping Pharah out if things aren't necessarily working for you. The Pharah Mercy synergy is nice for mobility and so on, but don't hesitate to swap if you keep dying. Any non-sniper high damage hero that you are comfortable on can work here. It's all about pushing as a team and timing your ults to the best situation that you can.
Let's start off with supports. We tend to go with a Symmetra most of the time. It's quite a distance to run from spawn and there are many good rooms for Symmetra to set up a nest of sentry turrets in. She can also easily pick up some ultimate charged by the first choke. Mercy is great at keeping everyone topped up and will have an easy time flying around in this area. The Resurrect together with the Teleporter will make sure that your team is ready to fight at full strength very often. As for tanks, Reinhardt feels like a must-have on this first part. He's very good at slowing the enemies down and blocking damage by the initial choke. Together with a Roadhog or Zarya, you should be set for the beefy heroes on this first part of the map. Roadhog seems to generally just do a little bit better than Zarya from our experience, so we're gonna go with him here. Though you could actually try a Soldier 76 since he provides sustain and long range damage. Filling up the team, you can go maybe for a sniper. Hanzo is great for his point clear ultimate and scatter arrows and will have an easy time finding a good vantage spot. Soldier is another great pick for his agility and his team heal, but you could even go with a McCree to put a quick stop to those fast heroes or burst down the enemy tanks. Junkrat is another hero that is very strong right now, and his grenades are great for putting down a lot of damage from the many vantage points available. Putting a steel trap down on the left flank can save your team from a sneaky Reaper or Tracer.
So the enemy team have taken the objective and now pushing through the alleyway. It's very difficult to defend, but don't throw yourself in or you're just going to keep dying. You may want to immediately change from Symmetra. There are no real great places to set up turrets, as the path is fairly wide and turrets are easy to spot with all of the turns. The offensive team have a great advantage to begin with considering the distance that you will have to travel from spawn if you've died. Changing to a Lucio will help with getting out of spawn quicker, and together with a Mercy you'll have a lot more sustain. We'd say Reinhardt is still pretty strong here with his ability to just keep back the enemy team with his shield. As far as the other tank goes, you might want to change it out if they are gaining a lot of momentum. Winston is good for locking down the payload, and maybe picking off some low health heroes like Tracer, Genji and Zenyatta. But you don't necessarily need to go 2-2-2. You could also switch out one of the tanks for a Soldier 76, so you have a little bit more offensive capabilities, and you can pick off enemy heroes like Pharah's pretty easily. For the other damage dealers, what you pick should be a hard counter to what the other team are throwing at you, so be ready to change quickly if you notice them taking control of the game. Take a look and see who's on fire and try and gauge who's doing the most work and try and take them out the game as much as you can. Just don't change so often that you can't get any ultimates charged up and used. If your Hanzo is being jumped by a D.Va or a Winston, changing to a McCree might be better so you can quickly deal with the tanks. However, a sniper is strong in this bit as well, so keep Hanzo if he's doing alright and he's staying pretty comfortable.
For this last bit, a Mercy can be quite effective since even if she dies, she won't have to run for very long to reach her team. With that in mind, we'd suggest changing Lucio to Zenyatta for the range and pressure. Just be aware that it can be awkward to contest a payload when so much damage is being thrown around it. Keep your Reinhardt, but pair him up with a Zarya, who'd be switching from McCree. Zarya's ult can be comboed with many heroes and she'll always be close to her team, so it's easy to pull off a one-bow combo to wipe the enemy team. Reinhardt is great at countering the D.Va ult, which we see a lot in this section. As for damage, you can keep the Soldier and Junkrat for range and damage output. Soldier's AoE heal kind of makes up for the fact that we sacked Lucio, and his accuracy is very useful when playing against the Pharah or other heroes that you'll have to deal with on long range.
And that's everything we want to go over in this guide. If you feel that we've left something out that we haven't gone over, or you want to hear more about certain areas, then do let us know in the comments. As we said, this guide is a work in progress. It will evolve and change as we get closer to launch, but we feel like this is a good guide to go over what heroes work well on King's Row. Be sure to let us know how you get on, and thank you very much for watching. Like this video if you want to see more guides like it, and until next time, take care, and we will see you then.